What do you think of when summer comes? Some people think about corn on the cob, grilling, hot dogs, burgers, ribs. It's usually around food. Maybe pool parties or taking a vacation. I think about potato salad. Why? Because my Aunt Livia, I feel, made the best potato salad on the planet. And all of you feel like your aunt or your grandmother or your mom or your dad or your uncle or somebody in your family made the best potato salad. So I'm not gonna say this is the best or the only way or the way it should be made. I'm just saying we're gonna be making a really different, cool, nice tasting potato salad from Aunt Livia.
Hey, don't f it up. Know what I mean?
So let's start with the most important ingredient, the potatoes. My aunt used to use white rose potatoes. You can use red potatoes, but today we're just gonna go Aunt Livia traditional for the most part. After the potatoes, I would guess the second most important ingredient are eggs. And I'll talk about eggs when we get to that point in the recipe. Celery for some crunch, some red onion. If you wanna use scallion, you can use scallion. We have black olives. That's going to be a conversation in itself. I'll just skip that for now because I know a couple of you out there are going, mmm. And we're also using pimento. The same people who are cringing with the olives are doing the same thing with the pimento. Just calm down. I guarantee it's going to be really good. Salt and pepper, of course. Fresh Italian parsley, flat leaf parsley. Mayo. Now, you can make your own mayo, totally fine. My aunt always uses that. And as far as I'm concerned, this mayo is the best mayo out there. So the only thing I would say is, please don't use Miracle Whip or something like that for sandwich bread. And some vinegar. In my family, we used to use red wine vinegar, but my dad actually used to make the red wine vinegar, and it had a completely different flavor. It was like aromatic and bouquet, and it was just really like floral. I mean, it was like there was layers to this red wine vinegar, okay, and you couldn't see through it. So it's not like that colored stuff you get in the store. So that's why I decided not to use it. My second favorite vinegar is sherry. I pretty much covered everything. As you can see, there's really not a lot to this recipe, but once it sets in the fridge for a few hours overnight, it's so damn good. So let's do this. Man, where do I start about eggs? I'm using brown eggs today.
Hey, what's the difference between brown and white? She always used white.
Brown eggs, white eggs, green eggs, blue eggs, basically any kind of colored egg you got, you can use. You can use organic, you can use non-organic, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, it comes down to the species of it has nothing to do with anything else. So today we're gonna be using 6 eggs, but you'll notice I'm using 8. The only reason is you never know what might happen. I mean, you know what I'm talking about, right? Whenever you boil eggs, whether you're soft boiling or hard boiling, you might lose one, or 2. So I always do 1 or 2 extra, just in case. The one thing I do want to show you is the water test. Fresher eggs will be a lot harder to peel, typically, than older eggs. This is a quick test for you to do at home. If you've had eggs in your fridge and you're like, oh, I don't remember how long they've been there, I'm not gonna touch that thing. Take a glass of water, doesn't have to be hot or anything, just cold water, and just carefully dunk your egg in there. What happens is, if your egg is fresh, it'll sink to the bottom, right? And what happens is, if it's really fresh, it'll sink to the bottom pretty much like that. If it's fresh, but not as fresh, it'll start to do this type of thing. Oh, no, it'll do this type of thing. There's a little air pocket, a natural air pocket on the larger end. And as it ages, the egg will start to turn up like this, and then eventually it'll start to move up in your glass. You know, open up your refrigerator and see floating eggs everywhere. That's not what I'm saying. But in your glass, it'll start to move up. If you get an egg that's like, it'll float. So if you have floating eggs, bye-bye. Now that we've talked about eggs a bit, I'm going to show you a completely different technique for boiling them so that it helps peel them and gives them that cute little round bottom that you don't normally get. Let's go to the stove. Typically, you start, right, traditionally in cold water and then you bring it up to a boil. This is a different technique. Forget about piercing the shell, forget about salt, forget about vinegar, and forget about baking soda. This is just plain water, but it's boiling and the eggs are right out of the fridge, right? They're pretty cold. I'm gonna do 2 at a time. I'm putting them directly in the boiling water. And when you put them in, make sure you, like, if you can, unless you're on high already, adjust the heat so it stays at a relative boil, and make sure they're submerged. When you're boiling eggs, you always want to make sure they're submerged, because if they're not, you're only cooking half the egg. These are going to come back to a boil, and even if they don't, leave them in there. Well, they should come to the back boil. Leave them in there for a minute, okay? And after a minute, turn off the heat, and we're going to put a lid on it, as I like to say. Take it off the heat and let it sit for 20 minutes. These are extra large eggs. If you have a large egg, maybe 18 or 19 minutes, somewhere in there, okay? And I'll show you how we treat those after we take them out. But for now, they're just going to sit in a nice little jacuzzi for 20 minutes while we go and chop veggies. We're gonna start with a red onion, medium or so, because you're gonna want about a cup. If you want to put a little bit more, you can. If not, that's okay too.
What the Your aunt never put onions in hers. Know what I mean?
Right. So my aunt never put onion in hers. Thank you for reminding me. Because she didn't actually care for raw onion. I actually like the onion in there, but if you don't like onion, don't put any onion in it. We're gonna cut the top off and the root end off. What we want to do is relatively finely dice it. I wouldn't say mince it. I'm not being too specific or precise. Doesn't matter. What matters is that you don't have big chunks. And then celery. What you need is about, I don't know, 2 cups. And again, about 1/4 inch dice. God, I remember when I was growing up, if we were going to a picnic and it wasn't the 4th of July, I would immediately run to my aunt's house and I'd say, "Did you make it?" And then she'd start to smile. And I knew, I got my potato salad. And then I always got the leftovers. It's a sawmill. I'm pushing the celery into the sawmill. No. I'm having way too much fun. Ta-da! Here we go again. I'm telling you, I love this thing. I can't believe I kind of forgot about it. Look at that. Look how easy this is. Look how easy this is. I'm not doing pastry. Not doing bread. Not doing ravioli, whatever. I'm doing celery and onion. That was a little homage to Justin Wilson. For those of you who are older than me, you'll know who he was. Celery and onion. Now we have pimento. What is pimento? It's that thing that's stuffed into olives and we find in jars in the store. Yes, it is that. It's obviously a pepper. It's not a bell pepper, actually. It's a different type of pepper, like a cherry pepper, and they're sweeter than a roasted pepper. Now, that already comes pre-chopped or diced, so we're not going to do anything with that. Now, I know, here we go. This is the big one. Some of you are like, oh God, I really can't believe he's going to do this. And other people are like, ha, look what he's using. Look at that, I can't believe it. He's not a real foodie. I'm a foodie, I'm a serious foodie. Do you know what the definition of a serious foodie is? Someone who's comfortable eating a greasy hot dog at a greasy spoon and appreciating it for what it is, and someone who can eat at a 3-star Michelin restaurant and appreciate that. Think about that. We're going to be using California early ripe black olives. You can usually get them chopped. For some reason, the stores that I went to didn't have them chopped, they had them sliced. So what you want to do is chop them up, and you don't need to get a really fine dice, but you don't want whole pieces. And the last thing is parsley. This is Italian flat leaf parsley. You can use curly if you can't find this. This has a lot more flavor. I know a lot of people prefer the Italian parsley because of the flavor. And you know, looking at this, I think we're gonna need the whole damn thing. So I'm just gonna cut the stems off. And you'll notice I had it in a glass of water. I'm really treating it like flowers. That's really the best way to keep your parsley fresh and green for a long period of time. I mean, not forever, but treat them like flowers. And then change the water every once in a while. You'd be surprised. Keep them on the counter. You don't have to put it in the refrigerator necessarily. If you do put it in the refrigerator, make sure you put a light bag over it. I do the same thing with cilantro. What we want to do is remove the leaves. We don't want the stem in here. No, not this recipe, no stem. You can use stems in stock or in other recipes, but not so much in this one. Okay, and once we do all this, we're gonna give the parsley a relatively fine chop. All right, it's been 20 minutes on the button because I have extra large eggs. So at that point, as you can see, they look exactly the same. That's actually a good thing. There's no cracking, there's no egg white floating around, this, that, and the other, right? Notice? So now what you wanna do, this is the other part of the technique. Take them right out of the boiling hot water, well, boiling hot, you know what I'm saying, and plunge them directly into ice water. Yes, I know, it's just like a torture procedure.
First, I'm going to put you in the hot boiling water, then into ice. Ha ha ha. Goodbye, Mr. Bond.
Now, here's the other thing. Leave them in there for at least 15 minutes, okay? After 15 minutes, take them out and just give them a little tap on the counter, right? Just barely give it a crack and put them back in there. Do not do the roll technique that you see some people do because it'll just fall apart, okay? So we're gonna leave those in there while I return to my parsley that I've left all by itself on the cutting board. Okay, potatoes are ready to go. I've got a large bowl of ice water. You can see that I've actually taken the smaller ones out already and plunked those little guys in there. Okay, and now I'll take the larger ones out. Do not do what I'm about to do. You may use a spoon. And what we want to do is cool them down just enough, this is important, so that you can handle them. But you don't want to cool them down completely like the eggs. And I'll tell you why. Let's take this over to the counter. Okay, we got these little guys. Now I can handle them. Take an impeccably clean towel and put your potato in there. And don't get rough with it, but just start doing this kind of thing, right? And that's another way. At the end of the day, peel them. I like to use a paring knife because I can pull the skin off instead of maybe tearing up the potato a bit. Then I can actually trim as I'm going. I'm going to scooch my taters here because I need this. And now I'm going to show you a very important trick. Now, a lot of people want big chunks of taters, which is fine. I don't have anything against it. I'm just going to do it the way my aunt did it. She did it in 1/2-inch dice. And I'll be honest, I kind of like it that way because you don't have big chunks of potato and celery and you're trying to get everything in your mouth at the same time. You'll notice, well, it's not smell-o-vision or touch-o-vision, but it's sticky and waxy. And that's a good thing because that's what's keeping the potato from falling apart. And it's still warm, believe it or not. Even though it was in the ice water, it's still warm. So there's like a 1/2-inch dice, approximately. And put that in your bowl. Potatoes in. Okay, as I was saying earlier, my family used to use red wine vinegar, but I just cannot find, nor do I have the barrel anymore that my dad used to use for making vinegar. And that was a phenomenal red wine vinegar. So I'm just gonna forego it, and I'm gonna use my go-to, which is sherry. I'm not gonna do that. Sherry vinegar, you can use apple cider vinegar, you can use white wine vinegar if you want. I don't really like white wine. You can champagne vinegar. Don't use anything like a raspberry or blueberry or that type of thing. You just want you're really going for the acid, not so much a flavor necessarily. So for 4 pounds of potatoes, you want approximately 2 tablespoons of vinegar. You can just sprinkle. As always, we're using kosher salt. Don't use anything else. You can use sea salt if you want. Don't use that stuff from the table. It's too salty. A little bit of pepper. And then toss it. Not at the wall, in the bowl. Just toss it. And you'll see, even though I didn't put a lot in there, right? There's no liquid in there. It's all been in with the potatoes. And now we're going to do the earths. Eggs. Okay, we've got 8 wovi in here. That's egg. And they're pretty cold. I've actually gone in and, pre-cracked all of them. I know I showed you one. But again, don't do that whole rolling thing because you'll basically crack the egg in half. So just now, go around the whole egg and just lightly tap it on the counter.
And nothing but the egg.
Here's the egg, the whole egg, and nothing but the egg.
So help me God.
Okay, and then under running water, and it doesn't have to be really intense, just a light a light stream. Use the water, okay, wherever it starts, use the water to kind of help push the shell away and work with the shell. Don't try to peel it where you want to peel it. Wherever the shell is taking you, go with it. Now see this? Watch. See, once it gets going, the whole thing comes out. And look at that. Look at that. That's a beautiful... What you really, really want is a nice tender white with a fully cooked yolk and no graying around the yolk. And that graying comes from overcooking. Ta-da! We have all of our components right in front of us. This is the best time because we get to put everything together in the bowl and finish it up, and then we get to eat it, which is always the best part. As you know, I'm not really a gadget person, but there are a couple of gadgets I do like, right? An egg slicer. Love egg slicers. The reason I love egg slicers is because of those wires, because they're so thin. They're not sharp, but they're so thin that they cut right through the egg perfectly. It's like wire cut cookies when you're doing wholesale. Never mind, it's another story. But you put the egg, right, thusly in the cradle and bring it down, and you get these really beautiful slices. Now, I want to show you perfectly cooked yolk, perfectly cooked white, and I know you can't feel it, but it's not hard. It's kind of soft, which means when you eat it, it's not going to be rubbery. So now what I do is I give it a, 180, 90-degree turn the other way, push that little guy in there, and let it fall right into the bowl. We got our eggs in there, see, and they're already chopped up nice. Celery and onion, pimento, boom. It's already looking pretty. I mean, look at that. It's like a fiesta. The black olive, and I'm going to use most of the parsley. I'm not going to use all of it because I do want to sprinkle a little bit on top when it's done. And actually, you know what? This gives it a nice freshness without being too herbal. I mean, yeah, you can make potato salads with tarragon or with dill, with all that, and I like all of them. Then it becomes very herby. Okay, now what I like to do is just toss it dry, as it were. You could, if you want at this point, put a vinaigrette instead, but that's not the way we do it in my family. Okay, at that point, I'm going to add the best mayonnaise. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, now, you dieters out there, do not, I will say this, under any circumstance, and I mean it, I'll come after you, use non-fat or low-fat mayonnaise, because it will get back to me and I will find you. That is utterly and totally, objectively illegal. Seriously, 2 cups. Oh my God! Well, you're not gonna eat the whole thing. You know how many people this feeds? At least 2. Ugh. Okay, so that's 1 cup, sort of. Notice I'm not really measuring because I've made this 10,000 million times, but I'm eyeing it. That's part of cooking. You don't need to measure everything with a measuring cup and a spoon. Just eye it. Just eye it. I might do an episode on just eyeing things. Okay, if you need more, you put a little bit more. Okay, now we're gonna put a little bit of French's mustard, but not too much. Maybe a tablespoon. Okay, now one thing you don't want to do is at this point add too much mayonnaise. You want just enough so that everything coheres together, okay? And at this point, I'm going to add more salt and pepper. Now, it looks like I'm adding a ton of salt. I am. No, I'm just kidding. I'm actually adding more than I normally would if this was going to be served warm. What's the reason for that? Well, number one, there's a lot more stuff in here to be seasoned, but more importantly, number two, this is going to be served cold. So anything that you serve cold, the flavors become somewhat muted by the temperature. So you have to overcompensate with your salt and pepper. Once you take it out of the refrigerator the next day, then look at it and see if it needs a little bit more mayo. If it does, then you add a little bit more. But don't add so much mayo that you're like, where's the potato? I see all this mayonnaise. This is kind of gross. Come in. You might not like pimento and black olive and parsley and all this stuff, but it's pretty. And I'm telling you, try it, please, just try it. And write me, even if you don't like it, I want to know why. That drives my wife crazy. When she doesn't like something, I'm like, why? She says, I don't know, I just don't like it. I said, why? And then she says, well, because it's, why? She says, I don't know, it's just the texture, okay. How about the sauce? It was okay, why? I mean, and it's not because I like to drive her crazy, it's because I really want to know. I want to know so I can adjust it for her next time. That's what I want, that's why I want to know. because I want people to enjoy stuff. And if they didn't like it, there's a reason. I just put a little bit of parsley, not a ton, just enough. That is a beautiful bowl of Aunt Livia's potato salad. It's best the next day, but I'm gonna try it right now. Look at all those colors, all those textures. It's just really pretty, it really is. Let's see. Okay, totally. I need you to try this with the waxy potato. Could be the white rose, could be the red, could be a Yukon, whatever. And try it with those garnishes because it is phenomenal. So please send me your comments and like if you would like to like. Subscribe, that would be nice. And if you want to ring that bell, please ring that bell. And also, like I said, please write me because I'd really love to know what you think. Otherwise, I'm going to see you next time. Damn, that's good.